Hey, hi there. I was just reading my e-reader. There's like all these things you can do with it. I'm reading this great book called The Campfire, From the Campfire to the Holodeck. It's about schools and what schools should look like. But I hope that you guys have an e-reader, and there's all different kinds of ones out there. And I thought that today, in our 10 to 10, where we look at 10 things that technology can do in 10 minutes, that we can look at 10 things that an e-reader can do, just like that. So let's take a look at the first one, 10 things that an e-reader could do. So the very first thing that you can do with an e-reader, this is most e-readers, not every single one. This is kind of what I'm using here is iBooks, but if you have a Kindle or a Nook or you've got some other kind of e-reader, they probably all can do most of these, if not all of them. So the first thing you can do is look for a word. So an example here, I picked out the word constructivist. And so you can actually, in a book, say you come across a word, you can say, oh, constructivist, I'm not sure what that is. You can type in that word and it'll show up however many times that word shows up in the book. So, and then it'll tell you what page that it's on as well. So it's on, in this one, it's on page 21, on page 76, 79, 87. So you can see that a word shows up a lot in a text, that it's probably a pretty important word. If it never shows up again after you read it once, then you think, wonder what that's all about. So searching for words, that's one of the first things that you can do within your book. Okay, what's another thing that an e-reader can do? You can actually add notes. So in this case, I didn't know what constructivism was, so I went out and found a little bit of more information, and so then I added a note that I actually put into this book. So the next time I came across it, I can pull up that note and I can remind myself a little bit about what constructivist theory is and what constructivism is. And so you can add notes. Now, this isn't to say you can't do these kind of things with a traditional book. You can actually put notes in a book, you can highlight things you can do, but what happens with an e-reader is that it makes it just a little bit easier to do. And so some of these things you can do with an e-reader that you could do in a book. Some of these things you can only do on an e-reader. So adding notes you can do in a traditional manner. You can take a note, put it in the book, but it's just easier. You can add an unlimited number of notes in a book that's electronic. So what's the next one that we can do? We can change the look. You can change the look and feel of your textbook or any book that you're reading. You can change the font, you can change the background, you can make the font bigger. If you've got eyes that are getting old like mine, you can make that font bigger. Some of our students might need a larger font to read a book, so you can actually change the look and feel of your book, and that's something that you cannot do with a regular paper book. So you can change the look of your book. So let's see what's another thing we can do. This is one of my favorite ones that you absolutely cannot do with a typical text. You cannot have it speak the selection. So let me show you how you actually do that. I actually have this little video here of how you can have it speak the selection. First you gotta select an area that you want it to speak. Then you highlight it, then you tell it to speak. Say start speaking.
But one does not need scholarly journals and books to find the problem. One need only ask the teachers themselves. In some of our workshops, teachers are asked to design their ideal classroom.
So that's kind of a cool thing that you can do, and this is very important, especially if we have some of our English language learners that aren't familiar with how words should sound. Now again, these aren't the best sounding word. I mean, they kind of have like the lady robot kind of sound to them, but if our students are unfamiliar with pronunciation or grammar usage or how something should sound, having it speak to them is a great way of learning a language. It's also kind of neat to just sit back and have the computer do the work for you. So that's something that an e-book reader does that a regular book cannot do, speaking the selection. Here's another cool one that I thought was very nice. Have you ever come across a quote in a book and you think, oh man, that's such a great quote, I wish I could share that with everybody? Well, in iBooks, and I think also in the other ones as well, is you can highlight that quote. You say, here's this great quote, and then you can shoot it out to social media, like on Twitter or your Facebook account, or you can like message it to somebody, send a text message to somebody. That's a really neat thing to do. And it also kind of advertises to people about this cool book that you're reading, whatever that book is. Posting to social media, that's a really neat thing. You can even email it to yourself. So you can even email that quote to yourself for later use. You're like, ah, man, what was that quote? And if you emailed it to yourself, there it is. So posting to social media, another great thing that you can do in an ebook reader that you cannot do with a regular paper text. Let's look at another one. This is something that you can absolutely do with a regular paper text, but you can also do it in a ebook reader as well, is that you can highlight and underline. We're all familiar with how that works. You can highlight an unlimited number of highlights and underlines, but one of the cool things about doing it in an e-text is that you can actually change the colors. So you can have, and otherwise you'd have to carry around a whole bunch of different colored highlighters. With an ebook reader, you don't have to carry any of them around. So that's a kind of a neat thing, highlight and underline. Another one is you can actually, in an ebook reader, go back and see everything that you've highlighted and everything that you've underlined and all the notes you've taken all at one time. So maybe you're 200 pages into the book and you think, I wonder what I highlighted back on page 31, or I wonder what I did back on page 12. Then you can actually click on it, the notes, and all of those will pop up. So if you highlighted something and you say, you know what, I remember talking about that word constructivist and it showed up later, wonder what I said back on page 32 about constructivists, and your notes will pop up. So you can do that in a regular text. That's like, you can actually flip back through, but an e-reader actually puts them all in one place, saving you a lot of time. So that's one thing. One of my favorites is this one, and this probably doesn't have to do so much with school, but it's one of my cool things, is that you can actually read the book in the dark. You can actually read the book in the dark because most ebook readers produce their own light. And so you can actually be in your bedroom at night or in a darkened room, and you can be reading while you're in a darkened room. And that's kind of a cool thing. So you don't have to have all the lights on to read your book. And now, we all know you could probably do that with a regular text, but you have to have like a little special light to attach. You've all seen those probably at bookstores where you like get a little light and you attach it to your book. But with an ebook reader, it produces its own light, so it makes its own. So one of the cool things about all of these e-readers is that you have access to tons and tons and tons of free books. And probably you don't know that because all these guys, the Kindles and the Apples and the Nooks, they all want you to buy stuff. But, and this is a big but here, is that you can actually, in all of those stores, access their free books. And there are tons and tons of free books. Most of them actually access something called Project Gutenberg, which is a project that has 48,000 classic and public domain works, all digitized, that you can download to your ebook reader. And so if you are wanting to read A Tale of Two Cities or any of Mark Twain's books or any of those classics, you don't have to go buy them anymore. They're all free and they're all just downloadable, and you can download as many as you want. And so you have access to these free readers using your ebook reader. Another one that you can, this is one of my favorite things, this always just blows me away. You can actually carry an entire library around with your ebook reader, because how much does data weigh? It doesn't weigh anything, and so you're only limited by the amount of memory that's in your system. So you can have tons and tons of books right on your one device, and so you carry an entire library around. So let's real quick go to our top 10. Here you can add notes, you can speak the selection, you can highlight and underline, you can access free books, you can read at night, you have an entire library going, you can search the book, you can post to social media, and you can change the look and feel. Those are the 10 things that you can do with an ebook reader. Some of them you can do with a regular book, some you can't. We made it through 10 at 10. We made it in 10 minutes with just a few seconds to spare. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.